Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the first gambling episode clip slash show slash, I don't know, analysis for the channel. This season, we obviously did the betting preview with Nick Diani for Serie A, but now we have another fan favorite, I would say, of one of the better Serie A bettors that I do know, and that's Angelo Zara of Playing for 90. But Angelo and I just know each other from, I guess you could say through betting circles and stuff, because I used to work at Sports Grid. So I know Gabe Morency's of the world and a bunch of Canadians, and I've been involved in those circles and used to have a soccer betting or footy betting show on there for a while. So I've been in the space, and Angelo's been one of those guys, and a Romanista as well. So perfect time to have you on. So how you been, my man?
Besides Roma start to the season, I'm doing not too bad. I'm happy Serie A starting. It's another new league to bet on, and hopefully we can crush it this weekend and till the end of June here.
Yeah, so because I know you've been very busy with MLS as well. I know it hasn't been that great of a season for some of the teams over there, but there's been so much spiked interest since Messi has joined. So obviously with that, but we're sticking to our bread and butter here. Milan versus Roma. Like you were saying, Roma off to a pretty rough start to the season. Mourinho still banned on the touchline. This one's going to be at the Olimpico. We'll get into the lines in a second, but I love talking about just the overall situation because it applies context into why some of the numbers are where they are or why we disagree with them. And oftentimes, since Mourinho has joined, you, myself, and a bunch of other people that see these public numbers from these sports books, we constantly say to ourselves, a lot of this is given Mourinho hype and not so much of what Roma has and what Roma is playing on the pitch. So we'll start with this. Thought you looked fine against Salernitana. Belotti finally gets on the score sheet, but drop of points is obviously a pain with Candreva scoring bangers. And then the match against Verona was probably the bigger letdown because of just the result and overall play. I didn't get to watch too much of it, but Wayne filled me in. Rough start. 1 point from 2 matches. And got to be honest, with no Mourinho, Dybala already hurt, Zaluski already hurt, Pellegrini looking likely off the bench with this one as well. And then Lukaku just arrived, so you can't expect a full 90 minutes. If Roma's going to be having guys, Angelo, it's going to be off the bench. Does that worry you for this one?
Well, it does. I'm more worried just the way AC Milan has been playing like the first 2 games here. They're just on fire. Everything, their transfers, I've just been working out Christian Pulisic, like just amazing. I would say AC Milan are like my second team in Serie A just because just the way they play. Like I love the flow they have. If there's one bad thing I have to say about Milan so far, like the first 2 games, I think their weak spot is defense, but it's not overall like the worst in Serie A. It's just if I had to pick a weak spot on AC Milan, it's the defense. But up front, it's scary. And Roma's defense, losing Ibanez in the transfer market and Chris Smalling looking a little bit older and one step back, slower. Roma's defense looks a bit shady now.
Yeah, and the same with Ndika didn't even get an opportunity to start yet. So to get assimilated in, it's just a weird. This is like typical Roma. Like honestly, like this is just. You knew the stuff with Belotti was gonna probably get fixed. He wasn't gonna have a season like he just had. But the Tammy injury, getting Lukaku late, the injuries are still continuing to pile up with Sanchez and Paredes. But yet, Angelo, for some odd reason, the numbers are having Milan as a slight favorite, I guess you could say. I don't whenever I see a team on the three-way money line have plus money and everybody has plus money, I don't feel comfortable calling them favorites, even though by definition they technically are. This one is the odds are close. We have Milan on plus 160. The draws at plus 210, which is a pretty nice number considering how those last 2 matches last year went, even though they were completely chaotic. And then the Roma's at plus 180. Can you explain to me why this is so close? Is it because odds makers think, hey, Roma will keep this one very close? They drew both times last season. They're tougher at the Olimpico, but there is no Mourinho. There are guys coming off the bench. So if everyone was healthy, I would understand that. But given everything I just said, I kind of don't get it. Can you make sense of this?
You brought up the point earlier. I think it's just the Mourinho fanboys. They're betting this stuff. I don't understand too. I I think Milan should be favored by more, in my personal opinion. I think it's a good number if you're going to take Milan on the money line. Nice juicy number there at plus 160. But yeah, Roma's just like a team like slapped together. Like there's no actual project. They just get a bunch of free transfers and they're hoping for the best because they're tied by
Yes.
financial fair play, which is another topic, but that has nothing to do with the numbers here. The thing is, I don't understand why Roma get the buzz. Like, I don't know who's betting this stuff, but and at the end of the day, it's just I don't know. It's a disaster for Roma here. I think it's a bad spot for them. And yes, they do play good at the Olympico, but this team. I don't. They haven't shown anything the last 180 minutes that I've watched like that. I could say with positivity, like yes, they look good here. And like you said, the injuries are already piling up after 2 games here. So like, who's going to break down the next game here going into tomorrow?
Yeah, and that's exact thing that we were talking about with Wayne Gerard on the channel as well. So if you guys haven't seen that and you're more of a better type, go look at that for the full preview with it. Again, even the total. So if we want to go to some of the over and unders, over 1.5 minus 250, not worth it whatsoever at that point. But then it gets to the 2.5 and it's only a plus 120. That's really not bad considering the holes within the Roma defense, the injuries that they have, Milan coming out looking better against lower blocks, something that they struggled against just last season, but they have a much improved attack, something that you've already liked. And I've said this to people, Bologna and Torino are no slouches when it comes to defense, especially within Serie A. Milan put 6 on them, and they're still having players integrating into the squad. So and Rafael Leao arguably didn't even have a great game yet. So that's the craziest part. With Roma here, I find them in a very difficult spot in them preventing Milan. And then again, I always think they're capable of scoring at home, Roma. So that's where I kind of see them coming with this one goal. I really do like plus 120 on over 2.5. I think most of this also comes from PTSD of both sides from last season, where people think that like, oh, Milan don't have this attack. Roma's going to be very cagey. They're at the Olympico. They're going to have to sit back. I think that's the approach you guys make. Do you agree with that? Do you think like you're going to come out, and this is something Wayne thought, I think Matt also, Santangelo thought this too, Roma's best chance of getting points from this and 3 points is, or even the draw is keep this close, tighten it, get it to the 60th minute or so. Hopefully Pellegrini, Lukaku, and Dybala or some sorts of combo of those players get on the pitch and Roma can get something out of it if it's a 1-0 or a 0-0 at that point. Is that how you could see why this number is really, it's minus 165 on under 2.5. So is that why you kind of see it like that?
Yeah, I do. I think that's the approach Roma. Like I think they're going to want to hold on for dear life for this one, even with the back three, right? Like that scares me, them playing back three. But Roma's played 2 games? Both games went over the number. Milan's both games went over the number. I think the trends are friend in this one. I like the over in this one, and Roma is kind of more of a what would you say, like a more hot-headed team. So I could see them if they're going to take a penalty. That thing, it can open things up a bit. And that's why like a player prop like Olivier Giroud to score like any time plus 220, I think that's a decent bet. I don't know why I have an envision of Roma taking a penalty because it seems like Giroud's taking the penalties for Milan, right? So for any time goal score, I think it's worth it. And I don't have a certain book, but I think there's books out there. If you could take Rafael Leao to score or get an assist at any time, I think that's worth a click too because he's just, as you would say, the straw that stirs the drink for Milan's offense. Like he's the guy, right? So he's going to make it happen. So I think he's either going to get a goal or an assist in this match.
Yeah, I honestly think this is one of these matches where he starts to take over. He has a good record against Roma as well. This isn't like some player that comes up small. And these matches are always crazy. And you're right on the penalty point. We've seen tons of games that, fans always argue with each other on the internet afterwards. And I've been at the center of it. You've seen it. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're bothering you. But like, that's just the way it goes. There's been so much controversy. Milan, again, kind of back to that fluid attack that we saw a couple years ago when they were creating so many penalties. Again, league has changed their rules. They're very inconsistent, but inconsistency, well, I don't know why I'm struggling so much with that, leads to chaos and chaos leads to penalties. And that's usually what happens with this league. And just like, again, just really quick to kind of get towards the end here, total goals is fascinating numbers here too, right? 1.5 for Milan plus 165 on the over. Then you have Roma 0.5 is minus 250 on the over. One set plus 175 for Roma to not score at all. Is that something you would even look at? Like if they're struggling to create opportunity, I just think Roma's going to get one at least. That's the thing. It doesn't feel like they'll dominate or be in a great position to win 1-0. I don't see that happening, but I feel like they get on the board somehow, right?
Yeah, I think they get like maybe a fluky goal at best, to be honest. Like I said earlier, the weak spot on this Milan team to me is the defense, but just because I say that doesn't mean Roma's going to score. Roma are 50 times worse on offense than Milan are on defense. Like since Mourinho's been a part of this Roma club, they've struggled to score goals. It's just as soon as they get inside the 15-yard box, they're lost. They have no idea what to do. So if Milan just stick a bunch of men in the box there, like Roma doesn't have the creativity to find a way to break past them. And then like all this Lukaku buzz, like I'm not buying it yet. He's missed training camp, all this. Like I don't think one player is going to change the dynamic of this Roma team, to me personally. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see it happening. But yeah, I don't know. I'm expecting more goals from Milan here. I think we talked about, I think I like the over here. I think the over's one of the plays in this match for sure. Over 2.5 goals at plus money, you got to take it.
Yeah, honestly, and again, if we just see teams slip up, the absence of Mourinho to me is just such a big and telling one with a match like this, with players missing, just those types of instructions that you get prior to getting on the pitch. It's just different, and that's why he's so hard to kind of gauge his teams. Just one last thing, really quick, and it's more of a future discussion. And you and I mean, literally everyone talks about this all the time. I alluded to it at the start of the video. Angelo, explain to me these top 4 odds every single year with Roma. And again, it's no disrespect, but now they dropped significantly, in my opinion, already with the odds. We knew prior to it, I tweeted out every single week. They were minus 125, or sorry, plus 125 prior to the first match of the season. They've already plummeted, might be an exaggeration, but they're at plus 250 already. Atalanta kind of slowly moved up in that one spot. And then the 4 that were tabbed or tipped to make the top 4 are now at odds that you don't want to take. And probably the best one to look at this point is Lazio at plus 400, but they're also off to a rough start. Sell me on Roma plus 250. And if you don't want to sell me on it, you could just call me crazy. So why plus 250? Or is it just at this? Because you also can't expect that number to drop more, because again, if they lose again, then there's no way they're in a good hole, because one of the top 4 competitors in Milan are already 5 points up on them, and Milan beat them. It's a significant gap already in the first 3 matches. And again, I'm just not trying to harp on them, but why the hell did they keep getting these numbers?
I have no clue. I have no explanation for you. Like even at the start of the season, Milan, Inter, Juve, Lazio, I would say Atalanta, those 5 teams are already ahead of Roma to start the season. And I don't know how Roma had the 4 best odds. Like I think it's just the Mourinho hype and everything. Like I can't believe Mourinho himself creates this much buzz for Roma. Like I don't know. People are senile. Like I have no idea why.
You still have multiple competitions again. It's not like you're just playing once a week, where we see that go in favor of Juve, because Juve is that type of team once a week. They have one of the better defenses in the league. They always beat up on the bottom feeders. Roma's just not that. There's the injury issues persisting. Mourinho's even made it a point in every single one of his press conferences, mentions Renato Sanchez. It's just, and it kind of comes across like I'm bullying Roma in this, but I'm not, because it genuinely just makes no sense with the numbers. If we're talking strictly betting perspective, I just can't get it, Angelo. And then really quick, is there any other numbers that you've seen future-wise on the board that you personally will take? It doesn't have to be obviously with Roma, because it's evident you don't like anything future-wise with Roma. Relegation-wise, Frosinone, by the way, was like a minus 500 prior to this season to be relegated. They've already plummeted down to minus 185. They look like they're going to stay up at this point, actually, because if they keep continuing to play that way, they don't look scared. But again, Scudetto, top 4, or there's a team that people aren't kind of well known about that could easily get relegated. What team out of those futures do you kind of see? Or Capocanoniere?
Well, I'm going to look like an idiot here. Like I picked Lazio, honestly, to go into Scudetto at the start of the season. I think
Really?
I took them for that money. Like I'm not much. I'll admit I'm not much of a futures player. I just kind of
Okay.
impatient, and I think was on you were on with Nick there. If you're gonna make a futures bet, like you want something like with a lot of juice. So I
Yeah.
thought Lazio was the best play. Other than that, it would have been Milan for sure. But I thought Lazio, just with the defense that they showed last year, I thought maybe if that continued this into this season, I think they're usually one of the
Okay.
more healthy teams, and we see teams. I don't know, players are playing more than they should like these days. So injury concerns are always a thing. So I thought Lazio would be kind of more healthier team. But anyways, I don't think they're going to win the Scudetto now after 2 games, but we'll see. But yeah, I think Milan and Napoli, to me, it's a two-headed
Okay.
race. I still think Inter, they're going to drop off. I think they're going to have a Champions League hangover. It's not, I have a hate for
Okay.
Inter. It's just, I think those teams just get a hangover once in a while. And I think Inter is just going to be one of those clubs. So if I could bet Inter not to make top four now, I would probably take it. Just,
Really?
yeah.
Okay. There's something about Inter. I think it's Inter and Napoli for the title. That's something
Mm-hmm.
I've said. I just think they've regressed a little bit, but I don't think this league is anything too crazy to think about. But again, you just like worry about like the way Inter was last year. And so like obviously there's always two sides to the coin, but when you look at Inter and Serie A last year, I thought they were absolutely the most disappointing team. And so
Mm-hmm.
relative to like injuries, it was really just Lukaku. They had plenty of firepower and able to score goals. Their defense was absolutely abysmal. It was one of the worst we've seen. I don't think I'm going to take much away at all from their performances against Milan when we argue that Milan had one of the weaker attacks without
Mm-hmm.
Rafael Leao within the top 7-8 teams within the league. So I found it very fascinating there. I think Pavard's a huge pickup for them. I think that'll be
Mm-hmm.
a boost. But yeah, overall, I think Napoli probably had the better value. And you and Nick are hilariously very much the same, but rooting for two different teams from the same city, where you kind of look at your teams the same way, where there's more general pessimism overall. But I get it. The squads are thinner. FFP isn't kind. You don't own your own stadium. I mean, the top quality overall in the 11 is declining. The Milinkovic Savic move, it's just, to me,
Mm-hmm.
Napoli still look fantastic. Cavada comes off the bench, almost instantly
Yeah.
makes that impact. It's really just, where does it happen that they miss Spalletti, and where does it show that they miss King? Because if
Right.
those two things end up being the major factors, then you see it declining. But they also have to have a massive decline because they were incredible last season because of their winning
Exactly.
record. So, Capocannoniere, really quick then to wrap it up. I know we said 5 to 10 minutes, Angelo, but
Uh,
this is what happens all the time.
yeah.
We're at 20 minutes. So I'll just run in the numbers real quick just so
Sure.
people know. Osimhen's plus 150, plus 275 for Lautaro. Then we have a big drop off. Dusan Vlahovic plus 700, Chiro at plus 700, Giroud plus 1200, Berardi plus 1600, your guy Belotti at plus 2000. Funny enough, Retegi and Noah Okafor both at plus 2200. We don't see your boy Lukaku here either. I think Scamacca's a better bet than most people would like to admit at plus 2500. I think
Yeah.
of I would take Scamacca over Immobile,
Yeah.
Giroud, Berardi, Belotti, Retegi, Okafor. But the two up front, I agree with. We saw Victor Osimhen take a penalty for Napoli, by the way. So we'll kind of see if that's a trend there, because that's usually what prevents certain people from taking this bet.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach it, and what bet do you like best?
Yeah. Like not to live in the past year. If Savage was with Lazio this year, I would probably take Immobile
Okay.
just because I think they have that connection. They just Immobile seems to thrive with Savage and all that. But yeah, it's hard to go against Osimhen here. Napoli, one of the better teams, they're going to kick the crap out of the weaker teams, right? They're going to get their goals, and he's probably going to find his way on the score sheet. So I would have to click Osimhen for my personal opinion. Like if I was going to take the leader for the
Yeah.
Golden Boot in Serie A here, so
Yeah, and the same goes for like again with these penalty kicks. You could kind of say like Hakan Çalhanoğlu, arguably a better penalty kick taker than Lautaro is. Lautaro,
mm-hmm.
the thing that scares me the most about him, he also doesn't have Kvara next to him, so he's not going to get that type of production and help. Osimhen right now at that plus 150 number is still a good one to grab. The thing with Lautaro is as well, he goes absent for
Yes.
stretches throughout seasons. And it's not a knock on who he is as a player. He's still a phenomenal player. I think he's easily the second best striker in this league at this point. I think he's built up that rep. I think Victor is just far more explosive and talented. And again, not a knock on Lautaro. I just think it hurts a little bit more. And then again, with guys like Arnautovic and Thuram, good players, are not the same threat that Dzeko and Lukaku are. Whether or not that kind of helps Lautaro remains to be seen. But I think just having less threats to score means the defense focuses on you more. And when that happens, then you're going to probably see less goals. But again, Inter is one of the more creative teams. I'd be stunned if these two don't finish in the top two. Angelo, appreciate you so much. One of the kindest and nicest people on the platform, which is very hard to find, and especially within the gambling community as well. One of the more toxic places. This is why I don't tweet picks anymore. I do this stuff on the channel because it's fun, it's conversational. I have the time to do it right now, but I really appreciate you coming on. I always enjoy shooting the shit with you. So again, just plug yourself. Kind of the stuff you usually tweet your stuff out as well. So go ahead, feel free to plug everything, my man.
Yeah, before anything, I just want to say thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure. I always love talking gambling, and especially Serie A, so I really appreciate it. And yeah, there's a few things on the project now with some websites I can't really say now because it's not set in stone. But yeah, for now, you can just find my picks on Twitter if you want to win or lose, tail along. And yeah, when you brought up Sports Grid Radio earlier of Gabe Morency, usually Thursday nights at 1:30 Eastern, I'm on there. We're talking soccer, MLS mostly, EPL bets, and Serie A too. And yeah, that's about it for now. And yeah, heading into tomorrow, my best bets for the game will be the over 2.5 goals, and I'm going to bet against Roma here. I'm going to take them or take AC Milan draw no bet. So if Milan and Rome tie, we get our money back, and if Milan get the win on the money line, then we get our stake on -110.
And that, okay, because I was just going to, -110 is phenomenal for a draw no bet. Honestly, like that's I know it kind of sounds stupid and it's not much of a numbers thing, but the way I look at it, and everybody has their own methods and styles and ideologies, that if I can get a team that I could easily see winning this match, and you're telling me a draw no bet is -110, which is essentially even, because I don't nickel and dime. I'm taking that. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's a great pick. And guys, by the way, Gabe Morency is just Gabe is a whirling dervish of a person. He is one of the better bettors out there. He is one of the more entertaining guys that you will ever watch. So I used to work as his producer and all that stuff, and I've co-hosted with Gabe. Gabe is something else. So tune in on Sports Grid for that with Angelo as well, if you're up that late. But again, Angelo, thank you so much. Best of luck to Roma the rest of the season. Best of luck on your bets. Nick Diani also loved the same bet, by the way. Draw no bet for Milan. So -110. Lock that in if you can. Otherwise, thank you guys and tune in next time.